get started, how many of you guys know, like, when you hear the word title or title insurance, how many of you guys know, like, what that is? Don't be shy, blurt it out. Like, do you guys know when someone says title or title insurance or title
Oh, I just heard a
policy?
title from like the residential aspect of like just finding like the owner's information and if everything is legit and owned.
That's correct. Yep, that's correct. That's the title. So the title is just showing the proof of the ownership. It's similar to like the title of a car. You know, you can have a car that's in the name of a person, an individual, or also have a title in the name of a LLC or an entity or a trust. And different people, depending on their protection level that they want, they'll take title in different ways. For example, on our commercial properties that my wife and I own, we like to take title under a LLC, and we do it under multiple LLCs. So we don't just have one LLC that owns four or five different properties, because that opens us up to risk and liability. Because if somebody sues us at one property, now they can go after the assets of any other property that's under that LLC. So you'll often find investors like myself or other buyers that we work with that will take title of the properties under what's called a single purpose LLC, and that single purpose LLC is an LLC just for that that one property, and that just gives you added layers of protection. So that way, hey, you get sued at one property, the damages that you owe to that tenant or to whoever's suing you for that specific property, it's only limited to the assets and the value of that property. They can't come after any of your other assets, any of your other property. Uh, and then some people will own it in the trust, and that's usually for for tax purposes, because as an LLC, you are getting taxed. But under a trust, there's different tax laws that apply. Also, if you own it under your personal name, like most of you guys probably have your personal residence under your personal name, because there's tax benefits to having it under your personal name as a owner occupied primary residence. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you guys kind of some things that we do with, like, how we utilize title. So the first thing that we do to utilize in title is we utilize it to find who owns a particular property, or who owns a particular storage, right? So if I was looking up 526, if I saw a property in the area and I wanted to contact that owner, I can then use a title program like this, Title Pro 247, to look up property records, property data, ownership records. And if you guys don't have something like this, I would highly recommend that you get it. And you can reach out to Richard. This is his contact information right there. I'll also put it in the chat. And this is stuff that title companies will typically give you and allow you to use free of charge. And the reason why they do that is because they want your business. So they figure, okay, if you're using their platform to search for property records, whether it's a property that you're looking to purchase yourself, or whether it's a property that maybe you're looking to change your title, you're looking to move title from your own personal name into the name of an entity or an LLC for protection purposes. There's certain things that they allow you and that they give you for free, because it's marketing for them, and they want to ensure that they get the business whenever you're looking to buy, sell a property. If you're doing a refinance, you have to, your lender will want to pull a title report. So, there's a lot of things that the title companies will give you for free, so that way you can keep them in mind. So let's just say I'm looking to find, I see this property in 29 Palms, and I'm looking to find the owner. I can go and I can click on this, and I can select various reports here on the left-hand side, such as a property's detail report that just has details about the property. I can select a transaction history if I want to know, hey, on this property, who owned it before this current owner? How much did they pay for it? Or if I'm looking for, say, some creative seller financing, I can also run the title and see, is there a loan on it? Because if an owner owns a property free and clear, then they're more likely to be willing to uh, do owner financing as opposed to if they have a loan that they need to pay off. So we use this a lot as we're add my report. This one, set a subject. So we use this a lot as we are doing our process of trying to find owners and collect ownership data on our end, so that way we could reach out to them and see if they have an interest in selling their property. So you can do it kind of as a one-off like this, and if you did it as a one-off like this and printed the report, it'll kick out a report that looks just like this, which will have, you got Richard's contact information there. And then they'll have the address, APN, county, and also right here it'll show the ownership name and the vesting. So the vesting is how they own title. It's a title under a business, is it under an individual, a trust, etc. Uh, so this is so if I was looking to call this person to try to see if they're looking to sell, I would then take this LLC entity and I would put it through the Secretary of State search. So whether you're looking at stuff in California or if you're looking at stuff in Arizona, Mississippi, Louisiana, whatever, every single state has a Secretary of State where entities have to register and fill out information every single year. So that way the Secretary of State has contact information for whoever the managing member is or the registered agent. And after you run that search on the entity, then that's when you can find out who owns the property and run that through what's called like skip tracing and reach out to the individual. Uh, this is also something to do as also if you're talking to an owner and you want to verify that, hey, this person that I'm talking to actually is the person who owns this property and they're not someone who is just trying to scam you. It's best to run some type of a title search just to verify that this person is either a signer or a member of the entity that's on the title, or they're the owner of the property. So as you're going through here, you can see that you'll see records and history of the property. David Smith and Susan Smith, those were the former owners, and they're the ones that they sold this property to well, actually the property didn't get sold. They had some issues where there was a foreclosure and the note got sold over to this to the current owner. But anyway, this is just a good quick way to find out information about properties that you either are working on or a deal that you may want to be that you may want to pursue. This will just give you kind of a quick overview of the size, the year it was built, what's the square footage of the property. Sometimes, not all times, it may have the rentable square footage, but that's kind of like a hit or miss thing. Another thing that we also use the title for is, we'll use our title reps to give us what's called a farm report. That's FARM. It's called a farm report. And what a farm report it's an Excel spreadsheet that they'll give you, which has a list of various property types and ownership records. So for example, with Richard, what we'll do is we'll give Richard I'll just send Richard an email and say, hey, Richard, I'm looking for a list of self-storage properties in the Phoenix area. And because they have this extensive database of properties, he can go into his site and he can look up, many warehouses in the city of Phoenix, and then it'll pull up every single property that has a mini warehouse use in Phoenix, and he can export that into an Excel spreadsheet, and then he'll send that over to me and my team, and then that's now a lead report that we can use to contact these people and see if they have any type of interest in selling. And again, that's something that they do for free. So this tool right here of searching properties, they give this, they'll let you use this for free. Also, the farm reports and the lead reports, they'll let you use that for free as well. And again, they're doing that with the expectation that at some point in the future, if you do make a transaction on the property, that you're going to use them for the title and the escrow. Any questions on that? All right. So once we get to, so after we use title to find out information about the owner, get the owner's contact information, and then let's say we move to a point where we are, where we either make an offer or we have, opened escrow. Now what we would do is we would get what's called a title report. And let me open this up. Title, so they have a couple different names: title report, title prelim. Depending on who you're talking to, they're gonna use different language. So this here is a title report for a property that we have under contract with Richard and with his team over at Fidelity. This is the one. This is a two property portfolio that we have for sale in 29 Palms. Now, with this title report, the purpose of this title report is to see, you just want to see like a history of the property. So you'll see who owns the property, who owned it before them. It'll show any type of liens on the property. So if there's a judgment that has to get paid off that's attached to the property, it's going to show that. If there is a mortgage that's on the property that has to get paid off, it's going to show that. Uh, and these are things that you want to pay attention to, because any type of lien that's on the property, you want to have that paid off at closing. So what this title report is going to show you is it's going to show you who owns the property, what's the vesting of it. It'll show you any type of liens that are on the property. So if there's a mortgage, if there's a tax lien, if there's some type of lawsuit against the property, it's going to show that those are items that are on the title. So that way you can ensure that those items are paid off, because you don't want that stuff to transfer over to your ownership. If there's a situation where there's some type of lien that doesn't get paid off and you now own the property, well, technically, the people that have that lien on the property, whether it's a mortgage or a lawsuit, they can now come after you, as you're listed now as the owner of that property on the title. And one of the reasons why you want to have this title report, or the biggest reason, is for purposes of what's called title insurance. Now, the title report, that's just this report that shows all the liens, all the easements, any type of encumbrance, any type of encroachment that's on this property. And when I say an encumbrance, that's a lien. It's something that is a burden on the property. So if there's a mortgage, or if there's some type of easement where the public can cross through your property to get to another side, if there's like a utility easement, all of that stuff is going to show up here on this title report. And this is the title report, but the reason why you have this title report is to see what type of insurance is going to be needed on that property, and to also confirm that the title company will provide title insurance. And what title insurance does is title insurance will protect you against any type of issues related to the chain of title or to ownership. So, because we live in an age that's digital and we have all of this internet fraud, it's becoming very common now for people to sell property that they actually do not have authority to sell. That somebody can get a fake ID, or they can pretend to be me and sell someone one of my properties on my behalf, and now that property has been illegally transferred. And if I find out that a property that I have has been illegally sold and transferred to someone, I then can now go through, what's called quiet title action and work to show that, hey, I never signed off on selling this property. I want my property back. So now, if I go and I take my property back from this individual, like say Vivek, you purchased the property, you gave someone $1 million for a property that they illegitimately sold to you that I own, and then now I come back and through quiet title action, I get my property back. Now the title insurance, the title company that insured that property, they now will reimburse you and give you your money back. So if you paid $1 million to buy this property, and then come to find out, 10 years or 20 years later, there was there was someone who was supposed to sign off on the sale that didn't. This happens a lot with entities, because on some entities like a LLC or a general partnership, sometimes there's multiple people that have to sign off and approve of a sale. And there have been instances where a property has sold and only, 75% of the members of that partnership signed off on the sale, but according to their operating agreement, 100% of the partners had to agree to the sale. So now that one partner that didn't agree, they can come back years later and claim that, hey, this property was illegitimately sold to an individual. I want the property back, and they have a right to take that property back. And whatever insurance company that insured that title, they would have to, they would need to pay you for the title insurance. And I always recommend guys getting title insurance regardless, right? You especially have to do it if you're getting a loan. So if you are getting a loan from a bank or from some institution, they're going to require that you have title insurance to protect, their money, because they don't want to have something come back in the future where there was an issue with title, and someone can come take that property back from you, and now the lien that they have on that property is null and void because the property was acquired in an illegitimate manner. So a lender is going to require you to do it, but there are cases where some people, they've bought properties and they have not got title insurance, because it's not mandatory to have a title report. It's not mandatory to have title insurance. This is something that's it's optional. It's not a requirement by real estate law that you have to buy a property and have it insured by a title company. Uh, kind of same way it works with property insurance, right? If you own the property and you own it free and clear without a loan, it's up to you as to whether or not you want to have insurance or not. But if you don't have the insurance, you run the risk that, hey, something gets damaged on the property, now I have to come out of pocket. Or if you pay, $500,000 to buy a property, you don't insure it, and then come to find out the person that sold it to you was a fraud, and they sold you a property that they had no right to sell. Now the rightful owner comes and takes the property back from you. If you don't have title insurance, then you're screwed, and you now have lost out on that, $500,000. You got any questions on that, guys? Make sense? Uh, Also on the title, also as it relates to title and title insurance, there are times where you may need to get something that's called it's called a land survey. And can you guys see my screen, Vivek? Can you see the okay? And you see that the outline, the boundary outlines right here? Okay. So what a land survey does is, a land survey is, they're professional companies that will physically come out to your property, and they will physically mark the boundary lines of your property, just to ensure that the property or the buildings that you have are within your property line, and to distinguish your property from someone else's. Because there's certain times where you look at these property lines here on this report. Sometimes these are not always accurate. Things change. People will buy additional properties, or people will sometimes build and they'll encroach into a neighboring property. So then you want to have, and it's always a good idea to have what's called a land survey, and they cost a few $1,000. So I've seen them cost between 2,000 to as much as $5,000, depending on the size of the property. And a land survey or an Alta surveyor, they'll come out, they'll look at all the different maps and all the historical records that they have on properties, and they will put out various flags and various markers at different points, just to confirm that a property is actually yours and distinguish your property from the neighbors. Because sometimes you have issues like this where this is the property line for the storage, but you might have this apartment owner right here that allows his tenants to park vehicles or have storage, or do something along this along the fence right here, because this fence, it's actually set back from the property line. So having the survey will allow you to see, hey, wait a minute, my neighbor is actually encroaching on my property. I need to address this with them so that way they can move their stuff, or maybe pay me some type of fee for uh, parcel for splitting out this piece of land and selling it to your neighbor. I've also had issues where in the past where I've had encroachment issues on deals that I've sold, where you'll have a storage building, and the folks that the contractor that built the storage building, their measurements were off, and they have some of the building that is actually encroaching into the neighbor's property. And if you have something like that, that can pose an issue with the title insurance and with the lender. And then you may have to have what's called an exception to your title insurance. And what an exception is to a title insurance is, it's something that a title company will not insure. So if there's any type of encroachments or any type of easements or encumbrances, title company is not going to insure uh, something that's an encroachment. But if there's something that's not an exception, then that would be something that they would provide insurance for. And I have seen times, I have not been part of these deals, but I have had some clients who they've had to actually file a claim for title insurance because they were sold a property that wasn't actually theirs, right? For example, you'll have someone who will buy this property, and then let's say the a portion of the property actually belongs to the neighbors, but the builders encroached onto the neighbor's property. So now this owner thinks, hey, this is my property, I'm making money from it, etc. And then this neighbor comes back and they decide, hey, look, I'm going to take my property back because I want to use it. So they take back this small little piece. And then now the owner of the property has to go to the title company and get reimbursed for this piece of property that they lost. Any questions on that? That's kind of in a nutshell about title. Again, I'm not an expert on it because it's not my field, but I am familiar with it because on every single deal that I've done as a broker, even as a buyer, I've run the title report, I've gotten a title prelim, and I've also gotten title insurance because you know I just want to be sure that the property that I'm buying, I have a right. I have all the full rights to that property, and if I don't have all the full rights, then I want to be insured for any losses that I have for a piece of the property that I lost. So, um, I guess some things to look for. I guess I could tell you on the title report. So again, what you want to look for, you want to again, you want to verify that the person that is selling you the property that they are the actual owner, and not only that they're the actual owner, you want to verify that the signatures that you're getting on your purchase agreement, on your escrow documents from the seller side, that person signing the documents actually has the authority to do so. And the way that you can verify that is, escrow or title, they'll usually ask for, the entity documents. So they'll ask for the operating agreement. They'll ask for um, some of the I forgot all the name of it, but it's various agreements that you have as part of an LLC. Your EIN number, things like that, just to confirm that, hey, this person is the one that actually can sign on behalf of that LLC. So you want to look for that. You want to make sure that any and all parcels that are associated with the property are included in the title insurance, because there are situations where you might have a property that is on two parcels, and you don't want to have a situation where, okay, you got insurance on one parcel but you didn't get insurance on the other. So you just want to confirm that, hey, all the parcels are here on this report, and I'm getting insurance on all the parcels. And then you want to look at any exceptions, all right? Because again, any exception, that's something that the title company is not going to insure. So if it's an easement or if it's some type of encumbrance, right here, this guy has a patent. Some guy named James B. Byler has some type of patent on the property, which I'm not sure exactly what that is because I haven't looked into it. But these are the type of things that your title insurance will not cover if there's ever an issue that arises with this property. And on the title report too, there are links that you can click, which will take you to the historical public records relating to that specific matter on the title. So if I click right here on the recording number and click the hyperlink, this now takes me to whatever information that's on file regarding this patent that that James Byler has on the property. So that'd be interesting for me to look at. I'm not sure what exactly that is. Again, this one right here, this is just an easement that the county of San Bernardino has to that property. And usually on here, you'll see a lot of stuff from the county, a lot of stuff from like Highway Patrol or SoCal Edison, different types of utility companies that might have a utility easement on that property. So that way, if they need to get onto your property and do some digging because there's an underground water pipe that needs to get fixed, then they have the right to come onto your property, to fix that. And there's been people that have unfortunately have had situations where some utility company had to come onto their property and dig into and mess up one of the buildings or destroy one of the units so that way they can dig underground and fix some type of matter regarding utilities. So yeah, you want to look at the exceptions, look at any easements. You want to look at any type of liens or mortgages on this property because you want to make sure that when you buy it, that lien is paid off. Or you can even run title reports on your own property. Okay, because there is something called title theft where an individual will go and put a lien on the property that's not even theirs. And there's all, I mean, this it's a big deal that's happening now where individuals are getting loans on properties that they don't own. So there's folks that will run a title report and they'll see, wait a minute, what is this $100,000 lien that I have on my property from XYZ lender? That's not mine. And they'll find out that they were a victim of, what's called title fraud. And then it'll also show you what type of property taxes are on here as well. So, as you guys are looking through these through these title reports, again, big thing to look at is, ownership records, making sure that's correct, looking at easements, encumbrances, liens, and any type of exceptions that are on the title. Now, as it relates to escrow, I mean, escrow is pretty simple. Like that's pretty easy. What escrow is, and I would recommend anytime you guys are doing a deal as a buying a deal or selling a deal, that you do it through an escrow. And what an escrow is escrow is a third party intermediary that's responsible for, making sure that everyone is abiding by their contract. So if I'm going to buy a property from, say, Steve, and we sign an offer, we will then take that offer to a third party escrow company like Fidelity or First American, or even a lot of lawyers too. Like if you guys have a lawyer, we've done escrows where the lawyer was the one handling the title and the escrow. We would give them the contract, and then they would be the one to handle all the paperwork and handle all the money. And it's just a good, safe way to make sure that a transaction is done without any type of fraud, because escrow is a neutral third party, so they're not going to side with one person versus another. But if you do a deal where, I say I just go and I buy a property directly from Jose, and we don't do it with any title, I just take a bag of money, I take a pile of money, $500,000, and give it to Jose, and I have to trust now that Jose is going to actually give me the title and the deed to his property. So I would always recommend just using title and escrow. Again, that it's not a requirement by law. You can buy property without having title report, without having a title insurance. You can also buy property without using an escrow. Okay. I mean, back in the old days, people would just take a pile of money, or they'll have they'll take five or six cattle, and then they'll give it to somebody in exchange for their property, sign a bill of sale, and that was that. But with just the way that the world is now, with all the fraud and all the theft, you just want to make sure you're doing things properly. So always go through those steps. Get have a title insurance, get a title report, and then use a third party non-biased person, such as an attorney or someone like a Fidelity National Title. Anyway, that's my quick spiel. You guys got any questions? All right, cool. Well, hey, look, I appreciate you guys hopping on. I will tell you, if you guys are looking to buy anything, I do have some updated off-market deals that I'll be putting that I'll be putting out. So we got some stuff in Lubbock, Texas. If anyone is buying in Lubbock, Texas, got some stuff in Southern California. If anybody's buying in Southern California, San Gabriel Valley, Coachella Valley, and San Diego area. Oklahoma, if anyone's looking in Oklahoma City, I got some stuff in Oklahoma City. And I also have some off-market deals in Tennessee and Georgia. So if you guys are looking for any type of off-market deals in those areas, please email me, let me know that you're interested, and then I'll send you guys the information. So with that being
Hey,
said,
and then I actually do have a question. Thanks so much for the presentation.
no problem.
Do you have any resources as to like how the owner and seller should be paying different title fees for different states? Is there like some kind of national
Yes.
resource
Actually,
to review?
there is. So Richard, if you contact Richard, he has there's a brochure. It's called Who Pays What,
Yeah.
that they have for each state. So if you contact any national title company and just say, "Hey, I want a brochure of who pays what," they'll give you their brochure. Or some of them now they have it on their website. I'm not sure if Fidelity has it, but I know some companies like First American Like they'll have it on their website where you can put in an address and it'll show you what the closing fees are, and it'll show you, does the buyer pay this or does the seller pay?
Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions? All right. Well, hey, appreciate you guys. If you guys do have any questions, I'll hang out for another probably 10 minutes if you guys have anything that you want to talk about. Other than that, I will see you guys next Wednesday. All right, take care.